All right, Dave, how we doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Big week for us. We got Crufts this week, haven't we?
Oh, stressful week, but yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah. Well, I can see you've had your hair done. You've got your Crufts haircut.
Got my bleach put in, gone blonde, had a haircut, got to try and look a bit younger. Keep up
Have you
with all the fitness numbers.
have you waxed your bikini line?
Always.
Aerodynamic for the big event. I like it.
Exactly, I've got to go as fast as possible.
Yeah, what classes have you got?
Booster's got singles and champ, and so has Susan got the same. Champ, and so has Susan got the same. So competing Thursday.
Cool.
We're just there on the champ, are you?
We got international class on Saturday, so I'm I'm a bit of a big deal, you know.
In Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done any special training for it, or just the normal stuff?
Just the norm. Just doing some dog. I did a bit yesterday, dog walks, one jump stuff. I don't know. After my abysmal performance at the tryout weekend, I've changed my training a bit this week. I've only trained her 2 or 3 times since, short little sessions. So hopefully, she's been amazing at training. So fingers crossed, it was a blip, and she's going to be back to being my perfect little prawn again. It always goes clear. You never know.
At this close to a kind of a big event, I never know, but it's always that you want to do training to make sure that you're staying connected, but you don't want to risk any injuries.
Exactly. You don't overtrain. Yeah, she's going on a lead walk today. I'm just being a bit careful with her. Same as Bruce. He's like 10 now, so I've got to be super careful with him. He's never touched with bin lane, but this will be the week he does it. Just to piss me off. That's the kind of dog he is.
Yeah, well, you're talking about overtraining there, and that's a nice segue. Today's podcast is about exactly that. First things first, though, I've had a few people say to me in between podcasts, "Oh, I didn't realize you didn't know that much about the stuff you're talking about." I just want to explain. I'm playing the other side. I am playing the devil's advocate. I do know what a reward is. I'm
liar.
not actually that stupid, despite my accent might have you believe.
This is the problem. You do sound stupid.
It wouldn't make a good scientist. I don't think many people would believe me when I was telling them my theories, would they?
No, I definitely wouldn't.
So with overtraining, I think obviously there's been a lot of talk about it. Not even just recently, I would say within the last few years, maybe.
Yeah.
Whilst the focus is always on overtraining with young dogs, I think we'll probably look at all areas. So, Dave, I know that you love to tell people your qualifications. So go on, tell people your qualifications.
So many people don't know. So I did do a 4-year course on human osteopathy, which is obviously a degree course in Maidstone, and then I did a year with horses and dogs afterwards as well. So I am a qualified osteopath for humans, dogs and horses, but I don't treat anymore. Only my dogs, some of my friends' dogs, occasional students' dogs, but it's not my focus. My focus is the agility training, but I think it's given me really good background knowledge and understanding of body mechanics, how the body works, how injuries happen, how they heal, how to help them heal, etc.
Yeah, and I think it's good. As much as I was just taking the piss about it, I think it is actually good for people to know that you're not just someone who's talking from just experience. You've got the educational background in it, and you know what you're talking about.
I hope so. I tried to. I was going a long time ago now to dredge it up from the depths of my memory, and I am getting old. So, but no, I try. I do stay up to date with looking at things, and especially my anatomy and stuff. So, I try and keep the knowledge as fresh as possible. But it was a while ago.
With overtraining in general, and do you see much of it?
I mean, God, all over the world, doesn't it happen? I mean, it's such a hard topic because what is overtraining and who's defining overtraining? There is no definition of it. I just, obviously I would like my dogs to all compete till they're 8, 9, 10. But, some dogs, even if they haven't been overtrained, aren't going to compete till 8, 9, 10. Dobby, I definitely didn't overtrain him. I didn't have my own equipment. I was at uni. and he had to retire at 6 or 7 years old with a bad back. So, and other dogs that have been what I would call overtrained have gone on to compete till they're 10, 11 years old. So there is no definition of overtraining. I would just say less is always more. The less I can do, the better. If I can just do some skills and just get things right, and rather than go again and just do too much, I would prefer to do less. Because I think always, just common sense would say that the less you do, the more you're going to save their bodies from being overused.
Yeah, to give them the best chance of a happy life after agility, I suppose. Isn't it?
Exactly, yes.
So you say that you see it. Name some names then. Come on, chuck them in the fire.
No way. I mean, I could name a lot of names in England and abroad, but I'm sure we all could. But yeah, I think that's I would love to, but I don't want to be that hated.
You can tell me after. I think there's a bit of a fallacy that it only happens abroad, but it happens at home as well, doesn't it? And,
absolutely. You see people putting up stories every single day of them training their dogs. I mean, do they walk their dogs? I've got no idea. They train them every single day, and I don't think that's even all the training they're putting up, because I know as a fact they train elsewhere as well, and they haven't put that up on their stories. I just think, oh my god, my dogs get trained an absolute maximum when there's no competitions of 4 times a week, and that is a maximum, usually 2 or 3. If I'm doing a dog walk session, obviously, if I'm training a running dog walk, obviously I might go a bit more sessions, then it'd be like 4 sessions a week, but they're very short. You could train every day if your sessions were 5 minutes, but anyone who says they only do 5-minute sessions is absolute bullshit. Of course they're not. I bet if they put their timer on and actually time their sessions, they're going to be at least 15 to 20 minutes long. It's impossible.
Yeah, especially with dog walks. I know it's one of those ones where if you don't get the contact you're looking for, it's like, oh, just one more.
Yeah. Always. You think, I'll just get, you get a few bad ones, you get one good one, you think, oh, excellent, I'll get one more good one. Never go for that other good one if you're retraining it. Just be happy with the one you got. And I'm such a culprit for that. And then I think, oh, why did I do it?
Yeah,
me and
you
Martin.
get stuck in the cycle, didn't you?
Yeah, Dan's quite good at stopping. Me and Martin just want to get another one. So I have learnt to calm it down now. But yeah, that was always hard for me.
Let's talk about the young ones specifically for a bit then. And, the main idea being that it's too much too young. So why is it too much too young? Because for me, I mean, I've had a few puppies and some of them have been related to the Tasmanian devil. They are bouncing around the house. So physically, they are clearly capable of these things. So explain why. Why is it too much for them as a younger dog?
It's just, their bodies aren't, I feel, ready for the amount of pressure that agility puts on them. Bouncing around the house is something, but the actual pressure of running full speed, doing backsides, threadles, weaves, contacts, it's so much pressure on their bodies. And physically, are they ready? They're not, when they're really young, their joints aren't properly, they're not finished growing. So, they're just not physically prepared for that amount of training. And you are more likely to get injuries happen. And I've seen it so many times where young dogs have been overtrained and have got an injury because they've done too many wing wraps and they've got these shoulder injuries, their growth plates aren't closed properly, and just so much stuff. But it's the same with a kid. You look at a kid, you see all these young kids doing ballet very early on or doing gymnastics early on, and they are fucked by the time they're 40. And I think it's just very similar with our dogs if we do too much too young. And what is too much too young? But if I see a dog coming out at 18 months that can do everything and not just do the equipment, because you can train all your equipment by 18 months, but do it like dog walk straights, dog walk turns, weave entries, weave exits, threadles, backsides from every single angle. They're coming out looking like a fully trained dog. Then I feel that's too much. My dogs come out looking like baby dogs. Like, they can do the equipment. Some of them can't always do all the equipment, but they can generally. Susan could do all the equipment, but she wasn't doing it well and she wasn't doing it fast. She was careful and she, you could tell she was a baby. And that's what I prefer my young dogs to come out looking like.
Yeah, and long term as well then, and I suppose this is probably dog dependent, but if they do an excessive amount at that young age, do you feel like their drive can be affected?
Dog dependent, definitely. Like I could probably train Dobby every day of his life and his drive would not have been affected. But if I did that with Susan, she probably would have gone, oh, a bit bored of this. Like, yeah, I do think that it is very dog dependent. Like, I want them to come out thinking it's the best thing in the world to do, but also it can go the other way where you do it so much that they're always constantly high, like because they're never getting that chill out walk time.
Yeah.
And so they're always on edge, high. They get reactive, they get a bit weird. Collies can get weird if they're constantly in that state of mind of being completely high. So it's just, again, dog dependent always. But yeah, you can definitely affect their drive if you're training them too much, and especially doing too hard too young. That's something I don't do because one, it affects drive, and two, it's too hard on their bodies. And I'm not saying I don't train throttles and backsides. I do young, but they're easy ones. I don't overdo it. You know, they'll learn the foundations, they'll build up to it. But I'd say Susan's backsides and throttles are still, you know, they're still learning now, and she's 3. Like, she still isn't perfect at either of them, you know, but she could do them at 18 months, and she's still 3 and still not doing them perfectly. And I think that's absolutely fine.
And I think the important thing that you said there is it's not that you don't do them, it's that you don't do too much of them. Because like I can only refer back to kind of the human side of things. And I know when we're training younger kids, we do all the movements, but it's a case of not drilling them to the nth degree and just teaching the movement patterns, but not overtraining the movement patterns. And I guess it's the same kind of things with the dog. Yes, they can do a rap, but you don't need to do 50 raps a day.
No,
and that's kind of the thing, because you do need to prepare their bodies for the types of movements they're going to see. But, and again, that's the problem, isn't it? It's the overtraining of those movement patterns, which makes it, that's where the danger lies, I guess.
It's always quality over quantity. Like when Fame, you know, look how well Fame did. She won everything in the UK. She got medals abroad. She could not do the stuff Susan could do at this age. And I know courses have changed, but she was completely differently trained because we didn't need throttles and backsides the same as we do now. The courses didn't encourage that. So yes, as they get each dog, they're doing harder stuff younger naturally because that's how courses are progressing as well. So if they're already having to do it because courses have changed, then they're going to have to do it. You know, people that are then overtraining, it's just so much for them. You know, but some people would look at me and say, I overtrain my young dogs, that they come out being able to do the equipment and do all this stuff. It's very much personal opinion, but like you said, I've got the qualifications I have. I do understand it maybe a bit more than other people about how the bodies actually work and how they're going to be damaged younger. And they're just softer. When they're younger, their bodies are softer. The muscles aren't completely formed, the tendons, the ligaments, everything's a bit looser. So because everything's looser, it's more likely to get damaged if they're doing hard stuff young. And wear and tear for the long run. You know, the joints are looser, they're going to move more. If they move more in the joint, they're more likely to create arthritis in the future. It's little things like that that people don't overthink about.
And you got to wait for the growth plates to close as well, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be, I mean, none of us do. Obviously, we do train our dogs before the growth plates are closed, but, you know, some people x-ray and wait till they're closed before they do anything, but none of us do that. But again, if, you know, my dogs are launching around the sofas doing all sorts of things, maybe I should stop that. But I go on walks with them, you know, they're jumping over logs and doing other things. So, you know, they can move. It's not like dogs aren't allowed to do stuff, but I don't put my jumps up too young because that's obviously hard work. I don't weave them too young. I don't do the things that are particularly stressful in their bodies too young. Like when I do a throw on the backside, it's 1 or 2, you know, it's not like 20 or 30. And if you do it once a week, you know, if I went to a seminar or training day with someone, you know, if I did it as a one-off and did a few more, it wouldn't hurt. But it's when you're doing it daily, day in, day out, week in, week out, that's when it's going to affect them. It's the quantity of it all, not that they can just do it.
Do you think the fact that the trend on courses is for more speed now? I mean, it's always been for speed, right? You know, I think that people say now, oh, it's going towards more speed. At the end of the day, agility has always been a timed sport, and the winner has always been the one who's gone clean and gone the fastest. So it's always been about speed.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit more emphasis on it now, but is the issue from a training side is that we're asking the dogs to do these difficult skills like the threadles, and we're pushing for so much speed so young as well, rather than understanding?
I don't think my dogs are now faster than my dogs I've had before. I really don't. Like Dobby was probably still the fastest dog I've ever had, and that was 20 years ago almost. Like, So I think I've always trained for speed. The course design has changed. So yes, we're asking for harder skills younger at speed, but I don't think their dogs are actually going faster. I just think the courses have changed, and the courses encourage more speed because they're more generally more spread out, more open. The tunnels aren't as curved, the equipment's better, so it has got safer in that respect. But I think it's actually safer than it was in the past with dogs still, because we're trying to go that fast with tight courses, higher jumps, high dog walks, steeper A-frames, closer weaves. I think these days dogs are far more safer, even though they're probably going fast around the course meters per second because the courses are encouraging that. I think it's much safer.
Yeah.
I just think we didn't see injuries so much back then because we didn't have so many physios and osteos and chiropractors and everything else. Because nowadays everyone's a bit more aware of injuries, whereas back in the day, they went lame, give them a couple of weeks off, and then they're fine. And then they'll go lame again a few months later. I'll give them a couple of weeks off, then they're fine. It still happens now, but in the past, it was definitely more of a thing that people didn't get their dogs treated like we do now.
Well, you did another podcast. I don't know if you'd call it a podcast, again, when you cheated on me. It was before we were together, but it still counts as cheating.
No.
Where you talked about appropriate ages for dogs to do things, wasn't it?
Yes, we did. Me, Nara, Shelko, did Dan? I can't remember who else was doing it now, but yeah, we did a little podcast on that, a little talk about that, and I think that was a really good one because I think
I thought it was a good one. So what was it called, and how can people find it if they want to go look at it?
I don't know, and I don't know. But,
okay, well, I'll try and find it, and then I'll put the links to it with this, so that if people want to go and watch and listen, they can. It was a good one. I can't remember what you called it either, but it was good because it gave people clear ideas on what ages before.
It is such a hard subject because like Susan was competing at European Opens at 2 years old, and that's very unlikely, unlike one of my dogs, to be able to do that. And Banana is just 3, and she's now qualified for the next European Open and World Champs, one of the top spots. She was amazing at the weekend. So people would look at that and go, oh, they're doing so much for the young dogs. But some dogs do just learn quicker than others. That is true. Susan just, luckily they've got handlers that also can handle them a little bit and get around courses, which helps. But I still wouldn't say their skills are anywhere near finished, but they're good enough to get around the courses. So it's hard because people go, oh, they're hypocrites because they're still doing it young. There's differences, I seriously doubt they would go to the events and win. You never know, they might, but I think they're good enough to go with compared to the rest of the country. They still might be better than other dogs in their country. Doesn't mean they're at the top level to be winning when they get to the events. Yeah,
for sure. And a lot of the time you'd like to think that the potential is something that's being looked at as well. And in defense, and I can only I'll talk about Banana because this was only last weekend. She was amazing. She did really good tryouts, but you could still see she was a young dog because, you said, Nara managed her brilliantly, and there were times that she was gonna go off course because she hasn't got the experience, but Nara saved it, and that's a young dog thing to do, isn't it? So I definitely wouldn't say she was overtrained. I just thought she's a good dog, well trained.
We used to tell Nara off for not training her enough. Over lockdown, she just kind of gave up. We used to bollock her like that dog needs training. But her runs weren't perfect, and look, that's how I'm so proud that we bred her because she's so fast. She was that fast with imperfect runs.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Stop dog walks, she didn't want to use a run, and etc. Wide turns, messy bits. The dog is a genius, obviously because I bred it, and ridiculously talented again because I bred it. Nothing to do with Nara whatsoever. I did all her foundations before she was 8 weeks old. So she, they're young, but she's that fast that she can still beat everyone on the day. But I think people do think, they're just, they're bullshitting. They just, they're not doing what they're preaching. But I truly believe we are trying our hardest to do as little as possible. So some dogs learn well, learn fast. And actually, we were all super surprised that Banana was so good. We weren't, if you'd asked us 3 months ago, would Banana do well at these events? We would have gone, absolutely not. Yeah. All of a sudden, it just clicked a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, because I'm looking a little bit more from you guys train fairly regularly together. So I don't see Banana, for example, between competitions, but like, again, to go along with what you said, the difference between the last time I saw her and then through this tryout process, it was like a different dog. And I don't mean that in an overtraining type of way. I just meant it's clearly all come together, isn't it? Like the timing of the partnership and the understanding of what's needed and all that kind of stuff. But they were just,
I feel the same.
Banana's always like been fast. That was never the issue. It was just they just get the understanding, and it definitely come together. So
I mean, they don't even, Martin and Nara don't even have their own equipment, so it's not like they can go out and train every day. It's impossible. They come over to us, they train after training days, but you know, then they really, Nara has not overtrained that dog, same as I haven't overtrained Susan. But they're dogs that have done well young. You know, Dan did probably the same amount with Boffin, but she didn't look like that young because she was too out of control and wild. It's just every dog's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. Can you hear my ducks?
I did hear them then. I thought it was your kid. I thought you said
Let me just go and shoo them away. Hang on. With human training, then, I'll always refer back to this because at least I feel like I've got a bit of a grounding in this and I can have an opinion. But I would assume it's fairly similar with the dog stuff. When you are trying to train a human, what you're looking to do is force adaptation in the body. And the way to do that in a very simplistic way of explaining it is you do difficult things so that the body is forced to adapt so that the next time it's able to do those difficult things. So you have to, like when we're talking about overtraining, you have to train hard to get that physical adaptation, but also you have to recover enough to get the super compensatory effect to be able to adapt. So with dogs then, how much of the training do you see that you think is just for show? And how much do you think is actually forcing that adaptation?
So what you mean, like people are just putting it on Facebook just to try and look fancy?
Yeah, like, and I could usually say I'm playing the devil's advocate, right? But this one, I do actually believe. And a lot of the things that I see, I cannot understand how that is making the dog stronger or fitter or that kind of stuff. So what
do you mean agility training or more like fitness training?
Well, yeah, so more like fitness training, not so much agility training now. We're talking about the physical training side of things.
Yeah, I'm a bit funny with the fitness training because I don't know. I think as you know yourself, like when you're really fit, you know, our dogs are top athletes. I think they're like, as fit as they possibly can be. They're crazy fit. And then you see them doing a load of sits to stands. And I think it's like me, not me. It's like a really fit person doing a load of squats with no weight. And is that going to, you know, I can do a lot of squats these days without feeling the goddamn thing, you know, and I do not pretend to be super fit. But is it actually, you know, just doing things like that, is it going to affect, is that going to help? You know, people say go and do your sits to stands, down stands, and I do that as like warm-up exercises, but I don't think they're actually any good with my fit dogs for fitness exercises. I think they're great for bringing dogs back to fitness or after injury, things like that. I think that's great. But when they're already in their peak condition, how is it going to help without putting some sort of weight on? And then if you put weight on, are they going to be using their bodies correctly? Are we going to make sure they're using the right bits of their bodies? You know, it's not like a human. You can say, you know, localize that one area, really think about that one area. You know, we have to try our hardest with them, but is it going to actually affect another part of their body, what they're doing? You know, and I see all these people doing these weird jumpy things with their dogs and, you know, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I don't know, and I don't think there's enough studies on it to actually know it's working. So I definitely think some trainers out there do so much that their dogs are actually slowing down because they're actually overusing their bodies and they're a bit tired rather than just making them fit. Yeah. You know, dogs do need days off and they need to have time to recover their bodies, and I'm not sure they're getting those things. My dogs always get days off in the week, you know, just a lead walk or just a nice calm walk around the fields without racing around like idiots. I think that's super important for their physical side of them.
And mentally as well, that though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So the thing that you said then about allowing them to recover, like I said, that from a human point of view, that's really important to get the adaptation that you need, because if you're constantly just drilling the body as in making it work hard all the time, you're never allowing it to recover to a point that it was stronger or fitter anyway. But the stuff that I see, like I've seen lots of plyometric type stuff.
Yes.
Now, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm not saying one way or another, but all I'll talk about is from a human side of things. And purely from a human side of things, plyometrics are when you are, again, I'll try and simplify it to make it as understanding as possible. I don't know how to simplify it. It's about trying to create as much force into the floor in as minimal a time as possible, right? And for it to be a pure plyometric, the ground contact time needs to be less than 0.2 of a second. Now, to say a dog is doing a plyometric I don't know if they are. And that's not to say that what they are doing isn't beneficial, but I'm not sure that it is actually a plyometric. Now, I could see how plyometrics would be very, very useful for dogs because they are for humans.
Yeah.
But then at what point does it become dangerous? Because I know that for humans, if I started giving people plyometrics who haven't got the base foundation, then that's quite dangerous as well, isn't it?
I think it's a very good point. Like, none of us know what's right and wrong, really. You know, if everyone's trying the hardest to keep their dogs as fit as possible, and people are doing the plyometric stuff, I'm not saying it's wrong, but if they're doing it wrong, as in, you know, their dogs aren't using their bodies quite right, or if they've got a little injury and they're offloading very slightly, and etc., then I think they could be causing more problems than actual creating them to be fitter. And it's a really hard one because there's not enough studies done. We don't know, you know, but you can't tell your dogs to do it. We have to try and train the dogs to do it as well as they can, but you can't tell them that they have to be in contact with the ground for less than 0.2 of a second or whatever. You know, we have to try and make it quick, and that's when it becomes really hard. And I'm not saying it won't make them fitter in some ways. I'm just saying it could be hard on their bodies or dangerous on their bodies to do it if you're doing it wrong. And the same with all the fitness stuff. You know, I used to do a lot of the fitness stuff, and I actually felt my dogs were worse for it. I preferred to just give them more walks, maybe do hydrotherapy, like water treadmill, because you can actually really be very specific with how they move. You can watch them everywhere. Whereas when I was doing the fitness stuff, how do I know they were perfectly, you know, if I was doing a sit to a stand, how do I know they're perfectly balanced on both their legs to stand up straight? You know, in a human, you can tell them to balance themselves. With a dog, you know, they might be leaning that way or leaning this way, and then they're unbalancing. And then are they creating issues or getting stronger on one side and not the other? I don't know. I just think it's a bit, all the stuff we do with the, you know, equipment and stuff, great for building fitness if they're coming back from injuries and stuff like that, because you can be quite specific. But when you're just trying to make them fitter when they're already super fit, I just wonder if it's actually, one, doing anything, or sometimes causing more harm than good.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say as well that, like, all of these things that we're saying, we're not particularly picking people out in a sense of saying that it's a bad thing, because I know most people just want the best. They want the best for their dogs, and they're trying to do all the things that they can to be the best, put their dogs in the best position for competition, right? So it's not a case of digging anyone out, because quite simply, I think, like you just said, no one knows at this point.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm really not. I'm just saying to be careful with everything they do.
Yeah, I agree. And like a lot of the stuff that I see come out with the dogs is I think is based from the human side of things. It's just a few years behind because the money isn't there from the research.
Of course, the biggest thing with doing it with the dogs is you can't tell them how to control their bodies. You can't tell them to weight there, put your weight there, put your weight there. You've got to try and you watch them and see that they're doing it. And people all don't, not everyone has the eye for it. So some people have the eye for it that really understand fitness. Maybe, you know, what they're doing is great and their dogs are getting super fit from it and it's perfect. But I just think for the average person who maybe doesn't have the eye for it, has just been told to do this exercise, I'm just not sure that it's very safe for them. But I'm not saying it won't create more fitness. It's just, we just don't know. I'm just saying I would rather on the side of caution with it.
Yeah, and like I said, again, from my point of view, with regards to some of the high technical difficulty type stuff, and it could be anything. It doesn't need to be specifically even around dogs. I'm just referring back to my own experiences. I have enough problems explaining it to humans.
Yeah.
And I'd hope they'd understand me, maybe not with my accent, but
No,
I know that they've got more of a chance of understanding what I'm saying, and then it's still really difficult because from a technical point of view, these things are so important with regards to getting the desired intention for the exercise. It makes me wonder, how does the dog possibly know exactly what you're trying to achieve, kind of thing?
Also, let me ask you this: like, if you're going to, if you want someone to get fitter, how often do they have to train? Would you say?
Well, for me, it's about quality. It's like you
Yeah.
actually said it earlier, because I was going to bring it up, but you'd already mentioned it, and I was like, oh, well, he's stolen my thunder there, but that's fine.
Always.
Yeah, I think it's essentially so. I have a lot of people say, oh, I'm worried about overtraining, and I think it's not. I don't want to say in agility specifically. In most sports, it's not a case of overtraining. The argument would be it's a case of under recovering, and in that sense, it's more about making sure that the sessions you're doing are programmed well and then done with the desired intention. So if you were going to train 6 times a week, that's not necessarily overtraining, as long as you make sure that 3 of those sessions are recovery-based sessions. So you do the desired intention of high intensity, forcing the adaptation on maybe 3 of the sessions. And then on 3 of the sessions, you allow the body to recover. You maybe do some stretching, you maybe do some muscle energy technique type stuff. And then before you push the body hard again, you allow it to compensate, then you get the adaptation that you're looking for. So it's not about overtraining, it's about programming effectively, and then maybe even periodization of your training as well.
What about undertraining is what I want to ask you. Like, what if someone, say I wanted to get more muscly, which I would like, if I went to the gym once a week, is it going to do it?
So more muscly in itself, the biggest issue we've got with that is the social media makes people think that it's easy to put on muscle, and it's just not.
No,
I know you know this, and I know you're doing the devil's advocate here, but yeah, it's just not.
So that's what I'm saying. If I went once a week, like I'm going 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm slowly, very slowly putting muscle on. It's not like it goes like that. So if someone did those exercises, plyometrics, or just even some sit to stands and wobble cushion stuff once a week, is that going to have any effect on the dog, do you think?
Well, I'll say on the human rather than on the dog.
Yeah.
No. Again, it depends what level we're coming from, right? Like you said, if you're coming back from an injury, if you're rehabbing something, then yes, sure. But I have got what I would consider like a pyramid of importance, if you want to call it that. And the things that we address first is always movement quality. So the exercises that you're talking about, like the body weight squats or the sits to stands for a dog, that would be the base layer of my pyramid.
Yeah.
So if you're coming back from an injury, then yeah, we look at movement quality first, and then we build upon that. But for a high level athlete, which is essentially what our dogs are, this is why I always have that hesitation to know how beneficial. And again, it's not saying it is or isn't, I just don't know. It wouldn't be something that I would say is useful for a high level athlete who is a human to be doing 5 body weight squats. I just don't see how that's going to force the adaptation.
Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And people that tell me they do their physical training with their dogs and all their conditioning work, they say doing it once, maybe twice a week. And I think to actually get, like you say, with a top athlete, to actually get these things to make a difference to the body, they've got to do them at least 4 or 5 times a week, surely. And nobody's doing that and then doing agility training and then walking on top of that. And you have to do so much of it to actually make a difference once your dog's already fit, which is why I kind of see it as pointless, because I'm not going to do it that much. I'm not going to add weights to my dogs because I worry about the obviously offloading and everything. So, and as a human training, obviously as we get fitter, we add more weight and we make things harder and harder and harder. So unless you're making the exercises harder and harder, or just sticking to your baseline level, if you're just sticking to your baseline level, even if you did that 4 times a week with a super fit dog, surely it's not going to do that much. So you'd have to increase it anyway. And then how do you increase it without making it too hard and them not understanding it?
Yeah, and again, it comes back down to something that we kind of touched upon earlier with the periodization of the training. So and I guess that's how I would, if I was doing it for a dog, I'd have to do it in that same way, in the sense that there would be a part of the year when they aren't competing that I could potentially push their training to higher intensity so that they could get that adaptation. But like for humans, again, I'll just keep coming back to that because I feel like I can. there are periods of the year where we look to improve certain things. But then when we get into that competition season, it's exactly what you just said. I can't be looking to force adaptations when they've got a competition on the weekend. So at that point, we do just basically do maintenance work. And it's just maintaining the strength, maintaining the power. I'm not trying to add anything because I just don't think that's really beneficial at that point.
Yeah, so I think it's good to do it as a maintenance thing, definitely, just, especially core stuff. As if I do any kind of conditioning work, it's more working on the core. But I think, just to be honest, dogs going out for a walk is much better fitness for agility than doing a lot of the other things they're doing. If they, as long as they're getting a good, they're sprinting and they're running and they're going through the woods and stuff. Like I was saying, I'm not saying it's wrong to do it. I'm just saying to actually increase fitness with an already fit dog, that is just not going to really cut it unless you're doing crazy exercise and doing it, for longer than just 10 minutes. I go to the gym now 4 or 5 times a week for an hour each time, and I'm seeing very minor differences. I'm not like I'm coming back going, oh, I'm massive now. Pardon my God.
The other thing I think that is worth mentioning as well, because I mean we did kind of touched on this, and there's so much we can talk about with it, which is why this podcast is going on a little bit longer. So
it is. Sorry, everyone.
But the one thing that is worth mentioning to people as well is if you're, and like I know you know this again, that the hardest, so you can get lots of different adaptations in the body that aren't related to this, but for the types of stuff that you were just saying about putting on muscle or losing weight, 90% of that comes down to the diet, because it doesn't matter how hard you train. You could be doing gym work 5 times a week and having like a total body split, doing arms one day, chest one day, back one day. You could split it, push, pull legs. You can do whatever you want in the gym if you're trying to put on size. It comes back down to your diet. Yeah. Because you cannot create tissue, muscle, if you're not in a surplus and you're not eating the right foods. And that's what people don't understand. I have lots of people with the best intentions come to me and they say they want to get stronger, but they're scared to do resistance weights because they don't want to get bulky. Well, I've been trying to get bulky for the last 20 years and it doesn't just happen.
Me too. The only place I get bulky is my gut.
Yeah, maybe we should try and make that the new trend, and then we'll be well away.
Just some raw meat.
There's so much that goes into putting on muscle tissue. It doesn't happen by luck. And then even when you do make a push at specifically doing that, it's still really, really hard. And this is, again, it goes back to the dog side of things. I just don't like, it's very, very hard to make the changes that we want to see. The thing with the dog is we can control their diet more because they eat whatever you put in front of them, essentially. Exactly. Unlike us humans who will choose the thing that tastes nice. It's definitely something that can be more controlled, but equally, like you said, it's really hard to know, isn't it, with a dog, what is overtraining and what isn't. So I think the summary of this kind of pod that we've done is more a case of just be careful.
Yeah. Use your common sense, be careful, don't overdo it. Don't just because someone says to you do 20 sits to stands, ask why. Ask, what is it working on? What muscles am I trying to improve? Am I trying to maintain fitness? Am I trying to improve fitness? What am I doing it for? And just being, don't just see something on the internet and go, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, because you probably don't know a clue what they're actually doing. Unless you're doing an online course with someone who's qualified, don't just go, oh, I'm just going to follow that because that's what they do. But, find out what their qualifications are. Find out how their dogs are doing. Are they actually good? Are they actually doing well because of all the stuff they're doing with them? And just be clever about it and just don't overdo stuff. Just, dogs do stay fit naturally with walking and everything else. But if you train them every single day of their lives, then you're going to have issues. You really are.
And there are plenty of good canine fitness rehab type professionals out there, and I just always say go and speak to someone who is good, I guess, isn't it? If you go recommendations, all that kind of thing.
If you go to one of them, they generally, I would say, they're more conservative, definitely, and I think that's a good thing to be, because then they're being more careful about not creating more injuries because they're trying to get your dogs fitter.
Okay, so it's that time of the week that everyone is always waiting for now. It's the Agility Net question of the week.
What is it?
Agility question of the week. Someone is looking for a brain game for their dog. Any recommendations for a good one?
A brain game.
A brain game or a puzzle, something to keep their dog occupied.
Well, I mean, there's loads of little games you can buy out there. I mean, I've probably just gone on Amazon and Googled it and Amazoned it and bought it within about 10 seconds rather than asking a question because I've got an Amazon addiction. But there's millions. If you go, there's the ones they can move around. There's the treat ball. They roll it. Oh my God, there's so many. You know, you can just play hide and seek with a toy with them. Hide and seek with a bit of food. I like to do that with my old dogs. I like to go out in the field, hide a toy, and make them go find it.
Yeah.
It just gives them something to think about and do. You know, but if it's food related, you can do the same with a sausage. Go and put a sausage somewhere and just, you know, hide the sausage. I always like to play that game.
Playing hide the sausage.
I do like playing that game. And you know, and just all sorts of things. So I think Google it.
Google it. Okay, that's the answer for this week.
But yeah, good thing to do with your dogs, that brain games with them.
Yeah, it keeps them busy.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it for us. So do you want to say goodbye, David?
Goodbye, David.
See you later.
See ya.